Welcome to Eagle Discovery. Together, we will explore mysterious places, unique cultures, and untold stories from all around the world. From ancient civilizations, distinctive traditions, to fascinating people, every journey we take is full of unexpected discoveries. Join Eagle Discovery to broaden your horizons and dive into stories that have never been shared before. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to never miss a video. Navigating cash-only Cuba, cash is king. In Cuba, the importance of cash cannot be overstated. It's truly king. Credit and debit cards from the United States are not accepted anywhere on the island, making cash the only viable option for transactions. This cash-only reality is compounded by a 10% surcharge that the Cuban government imposes on the use of U.S. dollars by foreign tourists. For those visiting Cuba, it's vital to plan ahead, as ATMs are available but often come with high transaction fees and unfavorable exchange rates. In fact, exchanging money at the airport upon arrival tends to offer the best rate, though visitors should be prepared for long queues and wait times. Simply put, cash isn't just an option in Cuba, it's a necessity, and understanding this can significantly ease the process of navigating everyday purchases and expenses. Cuban cigars, a luxurious tradition. Cuban cigars are a symbol of luxury, power, and freedom, and they hold a special place in both Cuban culture and the global market. Renowned for their superior quality, these cigars are meticulously handmade, with each one passing through more than 500 steps from seed to finished product. The process is a time-honored tradition that dates back over 200 years, deeply embedded in the island's history and craftsmanship. Internationally recognized brands such as Cohiba, Monte Cristo, and Romeo y Julieta are just a few examples of the world-class cigars that originate from Cuba. And each year, the Havana Cigar Festival attracts thousands of visitors from across the globe. During this event, tourists can observe the intricate art of cigar rolling and even participate in workshops to learn how to craft their own cigars. Have you ever had the chance to try a Cuban cigar? Would you like to experience this luxurious tradition firsthand? Let us know in the comments. Cuban Spirituality, Beliefs and Traditions. Cuban spirituality plays a central role in daily life. Many Cubans have a deep connection to saints, with Saint Lazarus being one of the most revered. According to legend, Saint Lazarus was a man with painful sores, who was healed by dogs that licked his wounds. Today, his image is that of a man in tattered clothes, with a wide-brimmed hat, surrounded by a group of dogs. Cubans often place his statue in their homes, and on December 17th, they offer money to make offerings of wine, candles, and sweets. Cuban traditions are full of unique beliefs, too. For instance, if a spouse dies, the surviving partner might cut a piece of the rope used to measure the deceased's height and place it in the coffin, believing it will prevent the departed from dragging them along. Other superstitions include the good luck believed to come from stepping in horse manure, a common sight in Cuban streets where horses still serve as a mode of transport. And on New Year's Eve, many Cubans take their suitcases to the street, hoping this symbolic gesture will fulfill their dream of emigrating. What do you think about these spiritual traditions in Cuba? If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Cuban Immigration, an exodus in search of a better future. For decades, Cuba has maintained strict controls over emigration, creating a growing sense of frustration among many citizens who seek better opportunities abroad. The economic struggles and political repression on the island have led to an unprecedented exodus, with more than 270,000 Cubans attempting to illegally cross into the United States between 2021 and 2022. This alarming number represents approximately 2.5% of Cuba's entire population, signaling the scale of the crisis. Many choose to travel to Nicaragua, where no visa is required for Cubans, and then rely on dangerous human trafficking networks to make their way to the U.S. The journey is perilous and costly, often reaching up to $17,000 per person, a staggering amount when compared to Cuba's average monthly salary of just $15. These individuals face significant physical dangers, as well as the risk of being caught and deported. The severe economic conditions, which are now the worst the country has faced since the 1990s, have pushed many to leave in search of better living conditions and opportunities for their families. The economic crisis, combined with political instability, has driven many to consider the perilous journey as their only hope for a better future, leading to the heartbreaking separation of families and the loss of skilled workers and young people from the country. Cuban Transportation, horse-drawn carriages and bicycles. In Cuba's rural areas, the lack of reliable public transportation has made horse-drawn carriages and bicycles essential modes of transportation for many people. These humble forms of travel reflect both the country's limited resources and the resilience of its people. The island's strict traffic laws ensure that vehicles on the road, including those few that are available, drive cautiously and rarely exceed 110 kilometers per hour. Drivers are also required to make a full stop and check both sides before crossing abandoned train tracks, and police checkpoints are common, adding to the sense of order and regulation on the roads. Government vehicles marked with blue plates have a legal obligation to offer rides to passengers who request them, although refusal to do so can result in fines. This unique aspect of Cuban law reflects the country's commitment to social welfare and mobility for all citizens, even in times of economic hardship. At bus stops, Cubans demonstrate a sense of patience and order, with people waiting their turn without any rush or chaos. This calmness in public spaces, even in the face of significant transportation challenges, is a reflection of the Cuban people's respect for each other and the shared sense of solidarity that remains strong despite the country's economic struggles. Despite the lack of public transport, there is a peaceful, almost communal atmosphere as people quietly wait for their turn in the limited transportation system. Cuba's economic crisis, a struggling island. Cuba is currently grappling with a profound economic crisis that is affecting nearly every sector of life on the island. The country imports up to 70% of its food and fuel, leaving it highly vulnerable to global market fluctuations. Once lucrative industries such as tourism and sugar production have both taken severe hits in recent years. The COVID-19 pandemic led to a sharp collapse in tourism, which had long been a vital source of income for the nation. At the same time, sugar production has dropped significantly, with the 2023 harvest yielding only 66% of the average crop, further straining the island's resources. As of 2024, Cuba is facing its fifth consecutive year of recession, marked by frequent power outages, fuel shortages, and a scarcity of foreign currency. Food production has plummeted by over 80%, leading to severe shortages of staple items like pork, rice, beans, and eggs. The lack of sufficient food production, coupled with restricted imports, has led to increased hunger and higher prices. Public hospitals, which were once a point of pride, are struggling with shortages of medical supplies and personnel, resulting in a 30% reduction in surgeries since 2019. Even public transportation, crucial for daily life, operates at just 35% of its capacity compared to pre-crisis levels. These persistent shortages and systemic breakdowns paint a picture of a nation in deep distress, with many citizens facing a daily struggle to meet even basic needs. Cuba's hotel industry, decaying infrastructure. While Cuba continues to invest heavily in the construction of new hotels, the overall state of the country's tourism infrastructure is suffering from the ongoing economic crisis. Many of the country's hotels and restaurants are in a state of disrepair, offering limited services and often falling short of the expectations of tourists. Despite efforts to revitalize the tourism sector, the country's cities and towns exhibit signs of decay, including crumbling buildings, poorly maintained public services, and a lack of efforts to restore the island's historical landmarks. The aging infrastructure struggles to support the influx of visitors, and basic amenities like water, sanitation, and waste collection are frequently inadequate. Water shortages are a common issue in several areas, as well as poor street lighting and inconsistent garbage collection, which contribute to an overall sense of neglect. The housing crisis is another critical problem, with many neighborhoods facing unsafe and unsanitary living conditions. In some parts of the island, buildings are in danger of collapsing, putting residents at risk. These deteriorating conditions reflect the broader economic struggles that Cuba faces, as the country attempts to balance the urgent need for development with the harsh realities of limited resources and a rapidly declining economy. The combination of a crumbling infrastructure and a weakened economy presents major challenges to Cuba's ability to recover and move forward. Cuba's deficient services, a contradictory experience. Visiting a restaurant in Cuba can often come with a mix of anticipation and frustration. Long waiting times are common, and sometimes the service can feel inattentive or even unfriendly. While some popular tourist areas train their staff well and offer excellent service, the overall experience across the country can be inconsistent. This disparity in service quality may surprise first-time visitors, especially those accustomed to faster or more polished service standards. Despite the challenges, many tourists still enjoy Cuba's vibrant food scene, and the slower pace of service can sometimes add to the unique charm of the island. Have you experienced this while visiting Cuba? Share your thoughts and experiences below. Coca-Cola in Cuba, a long-awaited return. Coca-Cola's return to Cuba was a long-awaited event, especially considering that it had been banned for nearly 60 years. For much of the 20th century, Cuba and North Korea were the only two countries in the world where Coca-Cola could not be sold. The ban was lifted in 2015, allowing for limited sales of the soda in the country. However, Coca-Cola is still far from ubiquitous in Cuba. The most common soft drink is Coca-Cola, a local brand available in cans and plastic bottles. Imported Coca-Cola, usually from Mexico, can also be found but is often sold at a premium price, sometimes double the cost it would be in other countries. Interestingly, while bottled water is sometimes difficult to find, rum remains readily available in shops and restaurants throughout the country. It's an odd juxtaposition that highlights the unique nature of Cuba's market. What are your thoughts on the return of Coca-Cola to Cuba? Would you like to try it again after all these years? Cuba and its classic cars, a cultural treasure. Cuba's streets are filled with a fascinating sight: classic cars that seem to transport visitors back in time. These cars, mostly built in the United States before the 1950s, are a cultural treasure that offers a glimpse into the country's history and ingenuity. Approximately 60,000 classic American cars remain on the roads, many of which have been meticulously maintained or restored by their owners. Additionally, around 30% of the vehicles on the road are Soviet-era models like the Lada, which were introduced during the Cold War. The uniqueness of these cars is one of the most iconic aspects of Cuban culture. While new car imports have been limited, the country started importing Chinese sedans in 2009, primarily for police patrols, taxis, and rentals. Since 2013, Cubans have been able to purchase new cars from state-run dealerships, but the selection remains limited. Despite the occasional presence of newer models, The classic cars are a living testament to Cuba's resourcefulness and deep cultural heritage. What do you think about Cuba's classic cars? Would you like to see them in person or even take a ride in one? Cuban law and Fidel Castro's legacy, a unique decision. In 2016, Cuba's National Assembly passed a groundbreaking law that banned the use of Fidel Castro's name for naming public buildings, parks, streets, or any other form of public honor. This decision was made in response to Fidel Castro's own wishes, as he had repeatedly expressed a desire to prevent the establishment of a personality cult surrounding him. The law specifically prohibits the use of his name in association with awards, titles, or any prestigious recognitions. Additionally, it forbids the creation of statues or monuments bearing his image. However, the law does allow for a more nuanced use of his name and likeness in the realm of art. Artists, including those in the fields of literature, music, and dance, are still permitted to use his name and image in their works. The law also permits public events to reference Fidel Castro, as long as they do not involve the construction of permanent monuments or honors in his name. This law reflects the complexity of Fidel Castro's legacy in Cuba. While he remains a pivotal figure in the country's history, the Cuban government has sought to avoid elevating him to the level of idolization, balancing his historical significance with a commitment to a more collective vision for the nation's future. This decision also reflects the desire to promote a sense of equality and unity, rather than allowing any one individual to overshadow the country's progress. The evolution of Jinetera in Cuba, a stigma and survival strategy. The term Jinetera in Cuba has evolved from a metaphor for skill to a stigmatized term associated with providing affection to tourists. This transformation reflects the deep social and economic inequalities on the island. The rise of tourism, especially after the fall of the Soviet Union, created an environment where many women turned to this work as a means of survival. However, reducing Jineteras to mere objects is an oversimplification. These women make complex decisions in difficult circumstances, motivated by various factors, from exploitation to empowerment. Over the years, government policies on this work have fluctuated, but the figure of the Jinetera remains a symbol of Cuba's social and economic tensions. Rationing cards in Cuba, a system that still persists. Since March 1962, rationing cards have been a part of everyday life in Cuba. This system was implemented after the United States imposed economic sanctions on the country, and today, it remains in effect for over 3.6 million households. Known as La Libreta, these small booklets allow Cubans to purchase basic products like rice, milk, and bread each month. Foreigners in Cuba don't have access to these rationing cards and must buy products at regular markets without subsidized prices. In 2019, due to additional U.S. sanctions, the Cuban government regulated the consumption of food, limiting the purchase of essential items like chicken, meat, and soap. Do you think rationing cards are a necessary system, or would you like to see an alternative? Classic car repairs in Cuba, a challenging process. In Cuba, classic car repair requires a permit, and in each province, clubs dedicated to vintage cars meet regularly to preserve a collection of the world's most well-maintained antique cars. The Havana-based clubs manage 431 vehicles and organize Sunday morning parades. Repairing these cars is complicated, since the production of original parts has stopped, and replacing a part requires a long, intricate process. Many Cubans opt for modern engines from brands like Hyundai, Mitsubishi, or Toyota for efficiency. Classic cars in Cuba are not only transportation, they are valuable resources, and many are converted into taxis at night. Would you like to see these impressive cars up close? Cuba is a land of stark contrasts, where the past and present collide in vibrant ways. While the island is home to a rich cultural history, iconic traditions, and incredible resilience, it's also a country grappling with economic hardships, limited resources, and social inequalities. As we've seen, from its cash-only economy to the challenges within the healthcare and transportation systems, Cuba's struggles are evident in everyday life, yet the strength and spirit of its people continue to shine through. If you've enjoyed learning about Cuba's many facets, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What part of Cuban culture or life intrigued you the most? Let's continue the conversation.